Throughout the history of the New York Police Department's 5th Precinct, there were many officers that were assigned to oversee Chinatown and its residents. For a majority of the 20th century, there was a strained relationship between law enforcement and locals due to several factors such as language barriers and distrust due to past experiences back in the homeland. However, one detective developed a strong relationship with the community over time by embracing its culture, traditions, and rules while being tough on crime. During his career in law enforcement, he encountered many figures ranging from gangsters to community leaders, all of whom had a great amount of respect for him. His name is Neil Mauriello. Neil was born in March of 1943 in Brooklyn, New York. He would spend his early days in several neighborhoods within the same borough until he enrolled in the United States Marine Corps in 1961. In the year of 1965, he would leave the service and join the New York Police Academy and graduate in December of the same year. Upon graduation, he was assigned to the 5th Precinct, which is located on 19 Elizabeth Street in Chinatown, New York. During his early days on the force, he did not cross paths with the gangs as he was assigned to motor vehicle patrol. This would change when he would become an anti-crime cop in 1971 and thus would often find himself at countless crime scenes. These events played a pivotal role in him recruiting several other detectives to form the Jade Squad in the mid-1970s, which was dedicated to combating Asian organized crime in New York City. Several stories that we would like to bring to light during his career in law enforcement is the murder of Nei Wong, the assassination attempt on M.B. Lee, who is also known as the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, the attempted hit on future Ghost Shadow's Dai Lo, Peter Chin, who is known in the streets as Kitzai, and the origins of how a high-ranking member within the Flying Dragons earned a nickname that was used by both the press and law enforcement. On a spring night in April of 1974, Neil was with several of his peers at the Golden Star restaurant, which is located on 51 East Broadway, ordering some drinks after his shift had ended. While enjoying his beverage, someone entered the premise and informed him about a shooting that had just occurred at a nightclub located on the same street. He, along with several other off-duty officers, would head over to the nightclub known as Fado, which means Flower City in English, to investigate. Upon arriving at the crime scene, he scanned the room and had seen bystanders crying, which was accompanied by an eerie drum roll being played in the background, before noticing 2 dead bodies sprawled out on the floor.
It was a little eerie. When I got there, I had been at the Golden Star bar where we used to hang out after hours, and somebody came in that there was a shooting, so I went down there. And it was kind of eerie when you walk in, and all you have is a drum roll. It was, and a lot of people crying, and people on the floor shot. And that was Nei Wong.
The victims would later be identified as gang leader Nei Wong and a young woman with him named Debbie. Earlier in the night, Kai Hong Mak, a 44-year-old former Hong Kong police officer, was tipped off about Nei's whereabouts. This would lead to him knowing the exact spot in the club that Nei and Debbie were sitting at. He would walk over to the table before taking out his .38 revolver and unloading a round into the two, with Nei being shot 9 times. As soon as they both fell to the floor, he would yell for the staff to turn on the lights and to call the police before walking over to the bar while waiting to surrender himself to the authorities. It was speculated by newspapers that Nei, Debbie, and Kai were involved in a love triangle gone wrong. However, other sources confirmed that it was to save face, as Nei had several of his soldiers brutally beat the former Hong Kong police officer since he was unable to pay money that was owed. This would cause him to lose face and seek retaliation. What Kai Hung Mak did not realize is that this event would play a pivotal moment and change the landscape of both the Chinese criminal underworld and Chinatown as a community. After Nei Wong's passing, a rising star named Nicky Louie would take over the gang, which by then was already known as the Ghost Shadows. In the summer of 1977, Man Bun Lee, the head of the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, who was also known as the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, was sitting at the Cow Wah restaurant, a business that he owned which was located on 44 Mott Street, when a young Hong Kong native in his early 20s named Chick Kung Peng asked him if he could speak with him privately. When they were alone, Pang stabbed Lee twice in his stomach and once in his right hand. Thankfully, Man Bun Lee had survived. Neil was a detective who was assigned to this case and remembered it as the most important event in his career.
It was a crowning moment for us. It was a very intricate case, and bringing someone back from as far away as Washington State, where he was trying to escape into Canada, and what we had to do to get him back, and then bringing him in and having him picked out the lineup, and then having him say to us that he would like to apologize to MB Lee was probably the most stirring moment of my career.
So he actually apologized to MB Lee. They were face to face. You had the defendant come face to face with the victim?
Yes.
What was that like?
Stirring. I mean, we were all in awe. The DA is there, 3 detectives, the victim.
He
was duped. Remember, he was duped into this.
He was hired to do the hit.
He was duped.
And he didn't know who the victim was.
He didn't. All he saw was getting out of debt. He was in gambling debt.
It's in the newspapers.
Oh, leader of the Lee Association, became the leader of the CCBA, which is the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, which is the umbrella for all of the organizations.
And you received a lot of recognition for that case.
We did. They honored us. The CCBA honored us. Yep.
Did you have to go out of state to arrest this guy?
No.
They sent you out of state, or they sent the...
No, we had identified him, and we put out, I don't know what they called it. We don't call it an APB. We something just wanted.
Yeah, a warrant for his arrest.
Okay, and a alert.
More like nowadays we call it like an investigation card.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, something like that.
If he comes across, have any contact with the police.
At any rate, that goes out to all the agencies, and an alert. Immigration border agent apprehended Pang, his name was Pang, going across the border. Well, when they put his information in, bang, it hit. They contact us. We now have a dilemma. How do we get him back to New York? So we contact our immigration in New York, who we have a good relationship with. And that supervisor made the determination that he's deportable, but we can deport him from wherever we want to deport him from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ordering him to be brought back to New York, and he'll be deported from New York. So he comes back, we pick him up at the airport from 2 agents that accompanied him. We bring him to the DA's office, we put him in a lineup, he's identified by witnesses, and the case is made.
Yeah, that was a good case. It was an intricate case.
Well, it was the case that broke the back of people didn't trust us.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese people, especially if they come from overseas, know the corruption of government and police, so they didn't trust us. That case more or less solidified us as legitimate people to help them.
Prior to this incident, the captain of the 5th Precinct and Lee would speak out against the gangs of Chinatown and was urging them to reconsider their life choices. Nicky Louie, who was the Dailo of the Ghost Shadows at the time, was infuriated and wanted to send a message. He believed that by having Lee eliminated, that it would bring the heat off the gangs. However, the exact opposite would occur, as law enforcement would shut down all the Ghost Shadows gambling houses for a whole year. Pang would go on the run and would eventually be caught by authorities in the state of Washington with the help of Neil, and was brought back to New York to face the consequences for his actions. Not knowing the importance and role that Lee had in Chinatown, Pang wished to meet MB Lee to apologize before getting deported back to Hong Kong. In April of 1980, Neil and his partner Phil Augusta were monitoring a big dance that local Chinese producers were hosting at a venue in Chinatown. As they were leaving, a young man approached them seeking help. He had accumulated several robbery cases in Brooklyn and was hoping that the detectives could have them dropped. When asked what he could do for them in return, he confessed that he was being hired by Nicky Louie and Philip Han, who had both defected to the White Tigers, to kill Peter Kitsai Chin, who was the current Dailo of the Ghost Shadows. With their interest now piqued, the young man would begin to brief them on all the essential details needed to create a warrant for arrest. The man, who was also a member of the White Tigers, was a part of several meetings plotting the murder of Kitsai. Nicky Louie, Philip Han, and several others would meet at a French cafe in Midtown Manhattan to discuss various locations that Kitsai would often frequent, such as a bowling alley on Staten Island and the Wall Street Racket Club. When they were unable to get a clear idea of his schedule, they would instead select the White Tiger and provide him with a shotgun. His orders were to wait in Chinatown to monitor an area that Kitsai often frequents. Upon hearing this, Neil and Phil would steal the vehicle with the shotgun and turn it over to their peers in the ATF, where they would replace the shells with duds. Once completed, they returned the car to the same location.
Dances and events that the Chinese producers, local producers, would do, and there was a big dance held, and we went there. And when we left, a young man came up to us and says, I need to talk to you, I need some help. And he said that he had some robbery cases from the borough of Brooklyn. So I says, well, what can you do for us? He says, well, I've been designated, hired to kill Kitsai. Well, that immediately piqued our interest. We brought him in, interviewed him, and we found that he was being hired by Nicky Louie, Philip Han's faction. And they gave him a shotgun that he was going to use to do it, and they put it into his trunk of his car. Well, we got concerned about that weapon. So we stole his car, and we took the rifle out, the shotgun out. We turned it over to our partners in law enforcement, ATF. where they replaced the shotgun shells with shells that couldn't shoot anything. We replaced the gun into the trunk of the car, and we had this young man recover it, so it didn't look suspicious.
Despite Neil and Phil taking extra steps to ensure that no one would get hurt, Kitsai had normal safety precautions that he practiced, which were more than enough to ensure that the hit would never unfold. Following this, several wiretaps and phone conversations with the informant would lead to 6 ghost shadows being arrested the following year. During the 1970s, the infamous Johnny Ang of the Flying Dragons would earn a second nickname that he would be addressed as by both the press and NYPD. Known as Onion Head in the criminal underworld due to his hairstyle, he was once firing a rifle off a tenement rooftop located on Catherine Street, Manhattan. Officers within the vicinity would receive a phone call about gunshots and were dispatched to apprehend the perpetrator. When they showed up to the scene, they arrested Ang, and one of them deemed him the name Machine Gun Johnny.
Oh, I didn't name him that, but the cops who arrested him on the rooftop where he was firing a rifle called him that.
So
and it stuck.
His street name was Onion Head. It wasn't Machine Gun Johnny.
Correct. The police gave him the name Machine Gun Johnny.
Why? Can you elaborate on the whole story?
Well, he was on the rooftop. There were shots fired. An anti-crime unit, if I remember, responded. They arrest Johnny and possibly others, I don't remember, and they were firing a rifle. So that one anti-crime cop, I remember him saying, Machine Gun Johnny. And that's what we started calling him.
Neil Mauriello would eventually retire in the year of 1982. Though he was no longer a member of the NYPD, he would still often find himself dealing with the Chinese community, whether it be as a bodyguard for Hong Kong celebrities visiting the United States or taking on other security jobs. He was a trailblazer in combating Asian organized crime and bridging the gap between the Chinese community and law enforcement. He will be remembered as a true crime fighter who was passionate about his job and for never breaking his principles.